Good morning. My name is Tyler Dawn Rosenquist. I'm with the Ancient Bridge, and this is my second part of Bridal Revolution. And last week I came to you talking to all you ladies out there, whether you call yourselves Christians, Hebrew roots, or Messianic, about the strength in femininity and how we deserve dignity and we need to start demanding dignity from the men in our lives. Not in a brutal, in-your-face aggressive way, but recognizing that we are vessels of dignity and honor, acting that way, and expecting that especially the strangers in our lives treat us that way. Social media has largely damaged that, and a lot of men out there, especially on social media, seem to think that they can run us down, even those men who claim to be believers. And, well, I had 4 really interesting experiences with that this week that I wanted to show you because I believe that nothing happens without a reason. I was planning on having this be my second video anyway, and then God came through, raised his hand, and let 4 people come after me. So, and I don't think that they thought they were doing anything wrong. But that's the problem. We've been insensitized to the way we treat each other. And so this week's video is about, have we forgotten how to be humble and civil in our speech? And more importantly, would anyone want to associate with us as brothers and sisters if they didn't have to already? With a lot of us, the answer is heck no. Why would I want to join a club? Because, if we're not leading changed lives, if we're not growing in the fruit of the Spirit, then it really looks like the Spirit is a figment of our imagination, and we're just acting the same way we did as unbelievers. We follow different rules now, but not different rules with regards to how we treat each other. And how we treat each other is spoken of throughout the Bible far more than the legislative kinds of things in a lot of the do's and don'ts. So I had these 4 things happen to me. Now, number 1, and I see this done against women a lot, but I also see this done against men. I see this used as kind of the trump card in any disagreement, where people have been talking back and forth, and all of a sudden someone gets frustrated and they want to do something to shame the other person instead of just bowing out gracefully or admitting the other person has a point. So, in response to Bridal Revolution Part 1, and this comment is gone because I have no desire to bring embarrassment to this person. Okay, I don't think he meant any harm. And I'm not even going to try to, psychoanalyze his intentions. I'm just going to talk about the effect. So, example number 1, don't demean people as a way to end a disagreement. On my last video, somebody made the comment that he agreed with me, and that if all men had wives like Esther and I can't remember who the other woman was, then, men would be righteous. And to which I responded, now, men have no trouble being evil without women. And that's true. That's true. Men have been being evil for millennia without any help from us. A lot of single men that are evil without any help from us. So I didn't say all that, just the first part. And so his response was, I was talking about the sons of Israel. And I said, well, was it Nabal? I think was the husband of Abigail, my personal favorite of David's wives. She was very wise. And I said, Abigail's first husband was very evil, and she was a wonderful lady. Women cannot control the behavior of their men. We can only influence it. Well, I was hoping he would see my point. Excuse me. But his response was, I think a twisting spirit has come between you and I. I think you need to go talk to your husband about this. Now that's the kind of remark that people use, and that's not the only kind of remark, but there are a lot of remarks out there that are used to shut down the conversation. I had two options. One was just to ignore it. The second one was to respond angrily. Well, I chose not to respond angrily. I ignored it and I removed it and the reason I removed it was whether he could see it or not. The comment was an embarrassment. It was out of line. I hadn't said anything wrong. I wasn't responding angrily. As a matter of fact, I make a point of, usually, of not responding to comments unless I'm not angry anymore. Because if I'm angry, I say things that are bad. We all do. We all do. That's why I've just made, a rule for myself that, Tyler, you don't know how to keep a civil tongue in your head. When you're angry, so just don't. So what I did was I removed the comment. One, because it was unfruitful. Two, because I would hate for an unbeliever to walk through, an unbelieving woman especially, to walk through and to see that this is the way a believing man treats a believing woman when they don't know each other. It wasn't fruitful, and it wasn't something I would want an unbeliever to see. So I deleted the comment. We need to learn how to bow out of a conversation respectfully and without taking cheap shots. And whether he meant it to be a cheap shot or not, I don't know. I'm not in his head. It was a cheap shot. So, this one was terrible. I felt violated for a day. Now you need to know, well, you don't need to know what kind of life I led before I was saved. Let's just say let's just not say. It's hard to shock me. But this guy, who has never really talked to me, we've just been Facebook friends for a while, tagged me on a conversation he was having with these two elderly, I'm not going to call them gentlemen. The stuff that went on in this conversation was profane in the vilest kind of way. I would not want my male children to see it. I certainly wouldn't want any woman to take a look at this. I wouldn't want any believing person to take a look at this conversation. It was so vile and sexually charged in an insulting way that the first thing that I thought of when I read it was, I can't believe this man had so little respect for me that he would want me to look at this. Okay? It was so disrespectful for him to do this, and I did something I rarely do, and I rebuked him publicly. I said, why would you tag a woman on this material? This is vile and offensive, and I feel more violated by the fact that you tagged me on it than by the fact that this conversation happened in the first place. Now, I didn't say this part. The really awful part was he had one of these Hebraicized names, which is something that some people in the Hebrew Roots movement do, and I'm not slamming everybody in the Hebrew Roots movement. I share a lot of beliefs with the people in the Hebrew Roots movement. But when you put part of the holy name of God, in this case Yah, whether it's Yeho or Yahoo or Yah, when you put that in your name, you are representing God in a very, very public way. Okay, and he had done this with his name. Now, this man's not Jewish. He wasn't born with that name. At least I don't think so. I hope not. But he had Yah in his name, and he was tagging not just me, but a lot of women on this filth. Okay? So not only did he violate every woman he tagged and every man he tagged, but he was also violating. He was bringing the name of God to nothing. Very bad. Very bad. That just shouldn't be happening. That's disrespectful. We don't do that to God. We don't do that to each other. Another example related to this from about a year or so ago, I would not have known what Miley Cyrus looked like twerking if it had not been for all of the people on my news feed posting pictures of it. Every time I saw it, I felt violated. I started unfollowing people. I unfollowed more people in that week than I probably have in my entire time. Why do I need to see that? Do I need to see Miley Cyrus doing that to know that she is not living a righteous life? Do I really? Do I really? Am I stupid? No, I don't need to see the things she's doing. You know, why are we offended when the world behaves like the world? When unredeemed people act like they're unredeemed, shouldn't we expect it? Where's the shock? I don't treat non-covenanted people like covenanted people, like somehow they've agreed to live to a certain set of standards. They haven't. We shouldn't expect them to act like they've got the indwelling of the Holy Spirit. It's not fair. So, number 3, we need to learn how to ask questions instead of posting accusations that are veiled as questions. About a month ago, I posted a video about prepping, and in it I bent over backwards to say there is nothing wrong with prepping. I don't have any problem with prepping. Prepping is not unbiblical. My only goal was to show how Matthew 25 obligates us to feed the poor regardless of how the times are. Okay, and that we can't hoard up food only for our own families and refuse to feed the hungry without violating Matthew 25. We can't turn away our hungry brothers from the door. So anyway, this was the whole point of the video. Nothing against prepping, nothing against anything. I said it several times. Well, this person who identified himself as a prepper and a pastor, he was coming after me saying I was making blanket accusations, which I wasn't. And then he asked a question, and it wasn't really a question. It was an accusation. It was, do you think that we're just a bunch of idiots that we haven't thought about this? Now, I'm sure that this pastor has given sermons from his pulpit before that didn't apply to everyone. And wouldn't it be terrible if somebody just came up to him and said, do you think we're too stupid to have figured this out ourselves? Do you think that we're all doing this? Why are you making blanket accusations? We've forgotten how to ask questions respectfully. Now, what's more fruitful? Somebody, if he'd come to me and said, I hope you don't think that all preppers have this attitude. I would hate to have you think that because, oh my goodness, we don't. You know, we've made plans to feed anyone who comes to our door. Doesn't that question, that genuine question, sound more like someone who's a pastor? Sounds more like someone who actually is getting ready to feed the poor who come to his door during the tribulation. But see, that's the problem. We no longer ask questions. As a teacher, sometimes I teach biblical context. Sometimes it is a biblical contest, isn't it, out there on social media? But I teach biblical ancient Near Eastern and first century context. And sometimes what we dig out of the ground severely challenges what has always been taught because through no fault of their own, for centuries now, actually millennia in some cases, we just haven't known a lot of the things that they did in the time of Abraham. And so we did what anyone would do. We apply 20th or 21st century understandings to biblical people. What choice did we have? What other context did we have? Sometimes that turns out to be wrong. Or sometimes a pastor who we really, really love just got it wrong, but we fell in love with that with that interpretation of the story. And, sometimes we don't understand that it isn't a question of this or that, but this and that. Just because the context says one thing doesn't mean that there isn't a spiritual interpretation. But sometimes I'll present information that will fly in the face of what somebody desperately wants to believe, has always believed, and they'll lash out at me. Okay? And had a few weeks ago, I had posted something on obelisks not being sun pillars. Obelisks are sun pillars, but they're not fertility symbols, and they've never been fertility symbols. Now, some people say that in modern times, the Masons have said that they were, but the Masons are wrong. The Masons are wrong. They never were. The sun would, in all the ancient cultures, the sun would climb to a certain point in the sky, and they felt like the person that was driving the sun chariot, or the person who was in the sun boat, in the case of the Egyptians, had been battling against the forces of evil. And if you like watching Stargate SG-1, they go through a lot of this context in it. I just think it's hilarious. And he was battling all day so the sun could go across the sky again the next day. And so they built these obelisks, sun needles, for the sun to rest on at a certain part of the day, and they'd always do it in front of the sun temples. I think it's just cute. It's really kind of compassionate, provide a little resting place for Amun-Ra. So, but a lot of people say that that means that the steeples on top of the churches are pagan fertility Asherah poles. But one, there's nothing in the archaeological record to say that there were ever Asherah poles. If you look in I've gotten way off topic here, haven't I? That's what I do. But if you look in the actual Bible, pole was added. It's just Asherah. We don't know if it's an idol or what. No, nothing but idols have ever been dug up. So I'm done. Anyway, he got really angry at me, and he started accusing me. He says, you're slandering other ministries, which I absolutely wasn't. I wasn't slandering anything that I hadn't taught at one point. And you're doing this and you're doing that. We've got to stop deciding what when we're emotional, we're very, very prone to decide that somebody who disagrees with us, somebody who is challenging us, has bad motivations. Okay? Well, sometimes they just want to teach the truth. Okay? Let's give people the benefit of the doubt. Let's treat people like people. So I'm going to go on because I did not mean to go there. Okay, number 4, encourage. Don't discourage. I put out a little meme, those internet posters this morning about my new YouTube channel, Context for Kids, where I'm going to be doing free 15 to 20 minute teachings every week for the next year on Genesis through Deuteronomy. And I wanted questions from kids. And I've also got a book coming out in a few weeks, or maybe next week, I don't know, on honor and shame in the Bible. And so I just did a little poster. Well, and I get this question a lot. And they said, well, are you going to use the name Yahweh? No, that wasn't. The question was, wow. The question was, this is really needed for our kids, but not if it's tainted. Are you going to use the name Yahweh? You see, that's how we talk to each other religiously. Not as brothers and sisters, but religiously. She had this thing. She wanted the sacred names to be used. And it was very, very important to her. So important to her that it didn't occur to her to say, wow, you're doing this for free. This must take you hours every week, which it does. And this is a lot of effort to put out. Thank you so much. I have to ask, are you going to be using Yahweh and Yeshua? To which I would have asked, I use Yahweh and Yeshua, and I also use God and Jesus, because it's my goal for everyone to know who I'm talking about. And my goal is to educate, So, I can only educate people if they understand what language I'm speaking. I'm not going to bark Hebrew at them and say, figure it out yourself. That's what I know. It's not what everybody knows. So, instead of discouraging me, instead of immediately making demands of me, it would have been really, really nice if she'd just taken the time to encourage me. And I gave her a nice response, and I could tell that it affected her because she removed her comment. And I'm glad that she saw what she was doing. A lot of people don't. We so need to just learn how to talk to each other like people. We need to learn when not to talk to each other. We need to not talk when we're emotional. We need to not talk until we can keep a civil tongue in our head. We need to remember that we're representing God. We need to remember that we want to reach people with the gospel. Isn't that the most important thing? So, anyway, that was what I wanted to come to you today about. Dignity is a two-way street. So last week I talked about being dignified and demanding that the men around us, and yes, also the women, treat us women with the dignity we deserve. We got to know what that looks like. I don't want people just riding roughshod over others when they think they haven't been treated the way they deserve. We need to know. We need to be patient, and we need to see where someone is at, and we need to gently guide people back into an understanding of what it is to be dignified and to treat others with dignity. We need to model by example. And we can't do that if we're behaving badly. So, that was Bridal Revolution Part 2. And I'll be back with Bridal Revolution or something on Friday, because on Monday, October 4th, I'm launching my children's channel, and I hope you will all join me. We're going to do the first 6 chapters of Genesis, not the whole first 6 chapters, but I'm going to tell you about how the people of the ancient Near East would have read Genesis 1. I hope you'll join me with your kids, your grandkids, or even if you have no kids at all, because Bible context, it's fun, and understanding the Bible isn't just for grown-ups. Have a wonderful day. Subscribe here for Context for Kids. Every Monday morning, free context teachings for the entire family.